Symbology of the Bible, Volume 1. Dan. Dan is an interesting topic. He seems to have special treatment, as we have seen. Recall that Dan means judge. We have seen that Mary was a Levite, which is the priest line, and Judah is the king line. Dan completes the trifecta of king, priest, and judge. Let's look at him in more detail. Numbers 1:27. Those that were numbered of them, even of the tribe of Judah, were 314,600. Numbers 1:39. Those that were numbered of them, even of the tribe of Dan, were 302,700. We see that the tribe of Dan was almost as big as Judah, only 11,900 less, almost 12,000. When we go to verses in Numbers chapter 26, we see that only one family of Dan is numbered. Numbers 26:42. These are the sons of Dan after their families. Of Shuham, the family of the Shumites. These are the families of Dan after their families. 43. All the families of the Shumites, according to those that were numbered of them, were 304,400. The only family of Dan mentioned are the Shumites. All the other tribes have multiple families listed. And this family numbered 64,400, the second largest tribe, next to Judah, from one family. Surely, Dan had more than one child. It is reasonable to infer from the data that Dan was a very prolific tribe. Where did they all go, and what about Shuham? This name is a compound.
Shuham. Shukham compounded from shuach, shua, to sink, literally or figuratively. Humble, bow down. Shua, to sink, literally or figuratively. Humble, bow down. Impossibly. Ham. Hot.
This would render a meaning of sink into hot. And this produces an image of this family being condemned. But, again, what about all of the other families of Dan? We see again in Genesis chapter 46, verse 3, that this is the only family of Dan mentioned. Here is a clue as to what happened to the rest of Dan's tribe. Judges 5, verse 16, Why abodest thou among the sheepfolds, to hear the bleatings of the flocks? For the divisions of Reuben there were great searchings of heart. 17. Gilead abode beyond Jordan. And why did Dan remain in ships? Asher continued on the seashore and abode in his breaches. 18. Zebulun and Naphtali were a people that jeoparded their lives unto the death in the high places of the field. Why did Dan remain on ships? To answer that question, let's see where the tribe lived. The tribe of Dan occupied a place on the coast of the Mediterranean, suggesting maritime economy was established. There was also another group of people on the coast near the tribes of Israel, the Phoenicians. The city of Dor was in Phoenician territory. The Phoenicians were the dominant sailing force in the Mediterranean below during the first millennium BC. In fact, driven by trade, they colonized many areas along the sea route westward and reached as far as Britain. They were considered master boat builders. Now shift to the first millennium AD. The dominant sailing force were the Vikings.
The Vikings dominated the North Sea and the Baltic Sea for a significant period during the Viking Age, roughly 793 to 1066 AD, effectively making these waters their domain. Their dominance was not a continuous, centralized empire in the modern sense, but rather an era where Scandinavian seafarers were the primary power in northern European waters. The Vikings' influence extended far beyond the North and Baltic seas. Their trade and raid routes reached North America in the west, the Mediterranean in the south, and the Caspian Sea in the east via Russian river systems. From the AI overview.
A map showing the various water routes of the Vikings, as proposed by historians, reveals the extent of their seafaring reach. Predominantly in northern Europe, they penetrated into the Mediterranean. They were also considered master boat builders.
The Vikings' dominance was primarily due to a few key factors. 1. Advanced shipbuilding. Their signature longships were marvels of engineering for their time. They featured a clinker-built, overlapping planks, design, shallow draft, and a combination of oars and sails, making them incredibly fast, stable, and maneuverable in both open oceans and shallow rivers. 2. Naval tactics. The longships allowed for swift surprise hit-and-run raids. In larger battles, they would sometimes tie their ships together to create a stable fighting platform for shield walls resembling land warfare tactics. 3. Mastery of navigation. The Vikings were expert seafarers, navigating using the sun, stars, ocean currents, and even wildlife. Their practical knowledge allowed them to cover vast distances across open water.
Their boats were very similar to the Phoenician boats, and no doubt were the latest iteration of those. Dan most likely became a seafaring nation, partnering with Phoenicians, trading, and settling along the sea route west. Is there any evidence of this? When we investigate the history of Northern Europe, we find ancient maps that provide evidence of the origin of some peoples. For example, Denmark is usually indicated as Danmark on old maps. In fact, even newer maps below continue to label it as Danmark. The name means Land of Dan. We can also find references to Dan in the history of other people. Danius, the Tuatha De Danann, the Shardana.
The term Danius is a variation of the Latin Danaeus, which originates from the ancient Greek name Danaos. Its etymological breakdown includes the following. 1. Ancient Greek root. The name is believed to be derived from the word Danaos, which some sources translate as sleeper. 2. Pre-Greek origin. Linguistically, it is considered to be of pre-Greek origin, meaning it predates the established Greek language and has unknown or uncertain earlier roots. In Greek myth, Danaus was the twin brother of Aegyptus and the legendary king of Libya, who founded the city of Argos in Greece and was the patriarch of the Greek Danans. From the AI overview. In Celtic mythology, the Tuatha De Danann are people of the goddess Danu. However, some Irish texts describe the Tuatha De Danann as originating from Greece, where they were teachers of the Greeks, linking the group's mythologies. The historical Shardana were a significant group among the mysterious sea peoples, who disrupted the Bronze Age Mediterranean around the 12th century BC. They were known for being elite mercenaries, skilled navigators, and metal workers, and are often depicted in Egyptian records with distinctive horned helmets and carrying shields. Term Shardana, also spelled Shurden, is a borrowing from Egyptian Sardien, used to refer to one of the groups of the ancient sea peoples who appeared in the eastern Mediterranean during the Late Bronze Age. The precise original meaning and etymology of the name itself, however, are highly debated among scholars. One interpretation links it to Hebrew or Aramaic roots, related to netmaker or survivor. A mythical tradition recorded by classical authors traces the name of the Sardinians to a legendary ancestor and deity, named Sardis pater Babai, Sardinian father, a Libyan son of Hercules. The etymology of Shar is diverse, stemming from Hebrew, joy, shine, thorn, Persian, shine, and some European words.
Taken together with other evidence, we can conclude that the tribes of the house of Israel migrated to northern Europe. Below, we see a map with an area marked Jutland. Studying English's evolution, we find that letters are transitory. D becomes T, KS becomes X, to name a couple. Jutland is, in reality, Judland or Land of Jude. And the old name for Anglos is Agelm, land of angels. Then there is this, the Saxons. Over time, letter combinations like CS and KS were replaced by X.
The use of the single letter X to represent the consonant cluster KS is a result of linguistic evolution and adaptation of alphabets across different ancient cultures, primarily from the Greeks to the Etruscans, and finally to the Romans. The transition involved several stages and language adoptions. It is considered of Phoenician origin. The ancestor of X was likely the Phoenician letter Sumek, which represented an S sound. The Latin alphabet, including the letter X, was later introduced to the British Isles and used for Old English. English writers and scribes repurposed the letter X, which was pronounced KS in Latin, to replace the native Old English spelling of the sound cluster. From the AI overview.
So it has been proposed that Saxons is really Saxons or Saxons. Again, over time, sometimes a hard C was replaced by a K. The word has been found in its ancient form as Saxons.
The most notable archaeological finding involving this spelling pattern is a 3rd century AD Roman gravestone dedicated to a woman named Ulpia Saxena. It was found in Kolkar, near the Lower Rhine in modern-day Germany. It is one of the earliest epigraphic, carved in stone, records of the Saxon name. The use of SACS instead of the later SAX confirms that the CS sound was the original phonetic way the name was understood and recorded by Romans before the letter X became the standard abbreviation.
Continuing with Dan. Joshua 19 verse 40. And the 7th lot came out for the tribe of the children of Dan, according to their families. Joshua 19 verse 47. And the coast of the children of Dan went out too little for them. Therefore the children of Dan went up to fight against Leshem, and took it, and smote it with the edge of the sword, and possessed it, and dwelt therein, and called Leshem Dan, after the name of Dan their father. The tribe of Dan outgrew their inheritance, and left and went north, right on the border with Phoenicia, Tyre being their principal city. In addition to leaving their inheritance, they fell away to idol worship. Judges 18 verse 17. And the 5 men that went to spy out the land went up and came thither, and took the graven image, and the ephod, and the teraphim, and the molten image. And the priest stood in the entering of the gate, with the 600 men that were appointed, with weapons of war. 18. And these went into Micah's house, and fetched the carved image, the ephod, and the teraphim, and the molten image. Then said the priest unto them, What do ye? 19. And they said unto him, Hold thy peace, lay thine hand upon thy mouth, and go with us, and be to us a father and a priest. Is it better for thee to be a priest unto the house of one man, or that thou be a priest unto a tribe, and a family in Israel? 20. And the priest's heart was glad, and he took the ephod, and the teraphim, and the graven image, and went in the midst of the people. The Danites insulted Yahweh by their actions. And symbolically, they took the north side of the territory of the tribes, which belongs to Yahweh. However, Ezekiel 48 verse 1, now these are the names of the tribes. From the north end to the coast of the way of Hethlon, as one goeth to Hamath Hazarenan, the border of Damascus, northward to the coast of Hamath, for these are his sides east and west, a portion for Dan. 2. And by the border of Dan, from the east side unto the west side, a portion for Asher. This is Ezekiel's vision and prophecy of the eternal city, and Dan is finally given his inheritance on the north side. Note also that he is the first to receive his inheritance. And another important observation is that all of the children receive a portion, from the river to the sea.